So today I have a little bit of a treat for you. If you can't tell, my voice is a little weak. I am getting over a bout with laryngitis this past weekend. My voice just went away. I wasn't sick, but just went away. And so I'm really having trouble keeping my throat clear to be able to record. And so I'm going to bring you a little treat that I think I mentioned to you several months ago. So let's go ahead and dive in and I'll tell you all about it. Are you a Christian woman yearning for a beautiful, joyful pregnancy and birth with a focus on God, not medical tests? Are you worried the birth you want isn't possible and you're tired of being treated like an accident waiting to happen? Hey mama, I'm Lori, host of Your Birth, God's Way. I'm a certified nurse-midwife now, but I wasn't always. After working for nearly 20 years in the broken maternity system, I too was in your shoes wondering how I could have the birth I wanted and that I felt God meant for me to have. I found a secret that has actually been known since the beginning of time. God's way is the best way. Spoiler alert, God made us and our babies, and He knows us best. He designed us perfectly for pregnancy, birth, and nourishing our babies after birth, if we work with His design and not against it. In this podcast, you'll learn how to be healthy and have joy during this time of life that will be over before you know it. So if you're ready to reclaim your birth and your babies for His glory, go turn on a few episodes of Bluey for that little one on your hip so you can put the focus back on you for a few minutes with me. Before we get started, as usual, I want to read a quick review, and this review is so super special to me because it comes from somebody in Germany, and what she doesn't know and what you don't know is that one of my very favorite places in the entire world to go is Germany. I've been there many times, and so seeing a review coming from somebody in Germany listening to my podcast just made my day. This review is from Anna Lena, and I may not be pronouncing that correctly, but I'm trying to make it as German as I can. It says, Lori is just such a blessing. I just found her, and this is just perfect for my first child. So much information, but what is more important, it doesn't leave God out of the picture and makes the whole pregnancy, birthing, and postpartum process a process to go through together with God. I have learned this is the time of life where women can rely the most on God and His Word and form a deeper relationship. Even if I'm listening far away from Germany, this is all I needed. I'm listening through all the episodes chronologically, so I have a bit more to go to catch up and have about half to go through my pregnancy, so I'm very excited for both. Thank you so much, Lori, and keep going, please. God bless you and your family. Much love, Anna. Thank you so much, Anna, for taking the time to send that to me. I hope when you hear this, which may be a while since you're listening chronologically, I hope that you will take the time to send me a quick email. Just let me know where you're at in Germany, how your pregnancy is going, and all that good stuff. I would just love to hear about how things go over there for pregnancy. I've heard lots of stories, but it's been a while, so I'd like to hear something a little bit more up to date. So I'd love to hear from you. If you are one of the people who has not left me a review yet, please hit pause real quick. Go leave me a 5-star written review over on Apple Podcasts. If you don't mind, it helps me a lot. It helps me find more mamas just like you and helps keep me encouraged. Now, for our episode today, I don't know if you can tell by the quality of my voice, but I am recovering from laryngitis. I can talk a little bit today, but every now and then it just kind of goes yucky. And so I decided what I would do is share with you a recording of a presentation I made back in February called Sharpen Your Health. This episode will be for all women, not just pregnant mamas, not just breastfeeding mamas. It will be for everyone. And I know a lot of you have been listening long enough to where you may not be pregnant anymore, but you do still have your health to take care of. So I think that you'll learn a lot from this. Part of it's about pregnancy. Part of it's just about health in general. Most of it would be seen as controversial by the general public. And so because of that, I will not be posting these to YouTube like I usually do. There's not a video either way, but some of you listen to the podcast on YouTube, and I just want to let you know, or you can let anyone that you know who listens on YouTube, you can let them know that it won't be on there for the next few weeks. What I'm going to do, this was an hour-long presentation, and it is crammed full of information, so it's really too much to share in just 1 or 2 episodes. I'm going to break it up into the 3 parts that the original presentation had, the 3 different sections that I talked about, so that you'll have 3 different podcasts to listen to over the next 3 weeks. I am going to be traveling a lot, so it works out perfectly, and it's going to give my voice time to heal up to where I don't have the drainage and whatever it is that was causing me to lose my voice. I hope this encourages you. I hope that it helps you. I hope that you learn a lot. If you have questions, as always, you're welcome to email me. I do make mention of there being slides that you can download. I'll put the link for where you can find those in the show notes as well. I do want to let you know that the audio is not the best because I was recording with my cell phone just sitting in front of me as I was giving this presentation. So please try to ignore the low quality of sound and instead focus on the content that I'm trying to share with you. That being said, let's dive in, and I hope you enjoy it and learn a lot.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. It is 12:59, and I said I was going to start at 12:59 and a half, because that's fine, yeah. Because I got a lot, and I don't know how. I will not get through all of it. Do not feel like you have to write everything down. My slides don't have a whole lot to write down, but you will get a copy of the slides. I've got a link for you to go to get them all, so you don't have to, like, there's a lot of graphs, a lot of stuff like that at the end that will all be available to you, okay? So for those of you who do not know me, I am Lori Morris. I'm a certified nurse-midwife. I put this on here not to brag, but just so you know a little bit about me for those that don't, to know that I have a little bit of credibility, maybe a little bit. Done lots of stuff. I've been in the maternity world mostly for the last 20 some odd years. I currently stay home with my kids, but I do host a podcast about birth called Your Birth God's Way. And I teach online childbirth education. So that's kind of a quick little bio, just so you know who I am, what I've done, whatever. All right, so let's talk about the word sharpen to get started, okay? I know we've had several different definitions of sharpen, but one thing that I haven't heard really highlighted about sharpening, especially now with the types of knives and things that we have now, in order to sharpen something, you actually have to cut metal away, okay? Honing, like when you cut, you dent your knives up and you can kind of go like this. That's called honing. That's just kind of straightening it back out. Sharpening means you actually have to take metal away. And there's going to be some things today that you may have to cut away to sharpen, to truly sharpen. We're not honing today. We are sharpening. And I actually didn't have this slide in here. This is a courtesy of my dear friend Elizabeth, who is walking through the door right now. Elizabeth, I just shouted you out. This slide is because of her, because we were talking about my presentation, and she said, faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. And we've had lots of kisses from lots of enemies who've told us lots of things are healthy, and they were not true. And they have not helped us, and they have given us a culture of sickness, okay? And so this is going to be a little uncomfortable for some of you, but I love you guys. I love you ladies. I'm one of you. I'm here with you, and I feel like that you all and we all deserve better. Okay, we deserve to hear the truth so that we can have what God meant for us to have. And, like I said, you're going to have to do some cutting. You're going to have to do some cutting away to sharpen properly. But as you cut away, you may hear some things that make you wish that you'd made some different decisions. Okay, I do not want you to fall into guilt. Okay, I do not want you to go there, because guilt paralyzes. And when you feel that guilt, it's just this thing that it does to your brain, and you can't move, okay? But when you were first convicted of your sins, when you first decided to be a Christian, you got convicted, you felt guilty, but you didn't stay put. You knew what was next. You moved forward. You submitted to baptism, and you washed away your sins. And so today, that's kind of the same idea. Obviously, this isn't a salvation issue, but this is something where you don't want to get stuck.
Have you been looking for a course online to help you prepare for your natural birth, but you're sick of having to weed through the content to take out all that new agey stuff or the flat out ungodly advice? Well, I've got some great news for you. There is now a course that will teach you everything you need to know to be fully prepared for birth, postpartum, and breastfeeding from a Christian perspective on demand, taught by a midwife with over 20 years of experience in the maternity world. And that midwife is me. After many years of being indoctrinated into that godless, medicalized maternity world, I woke up to the truth and realized that most of the maternity system in our country is based on lies. I became a doula and then a midwife, and now I help moms like you have a God-led, God-filled birth from an informed position, so that you do not have to be led by fear, but rather by faith in God and knowledge of the truth. Inside this course, you will be engulfed in Scripture while learning about God's ways of nutrition, prenatal care, birth, postpartum care, breastfeeding, what dad needs to know, and so much more. In addition to the course content itself, which is available in both video and audio formats, you'll get workbooks for each module so you can take notes on what you want to remember. Christian relaxation audio tracks to use during pregnancy and labor, printable affirmation cards, and the best part? You'll get access to a live question and answer session with me each month to ask your questions. To sign up or learn more, head over to go.yourbirthgodsway.com/course. That's go.yourbirthgodsway.com/course. Now, this is a serious course, and it's only for serious mamas who truly want to have their birth God's way. So if that's you, head over to go.yourbirthgodsway.com/course today, and I'll see you in the course.
You want to move forward. You don't want to sit here and say, well, it's too late for me. You want to move forward and do what you can do. You know how, like, when you first hear the gospel or you're first really getting into it, like, you just want to tell everybody. You want to go chase people and tell them the truth because especially people like, in the denominational world, they believe their faith, they have this strong faith, but it's in the wrong thing, and you just want to shake them. That's how I feel about the things I'm going to talk about today. I just want you guys to see how much we've been lied to, and understand that I was one of the people who bought into all the lies, and I have come completely to the other side. And so I want to help you kind of see some of the things I saw, so maybe you can make some of the changes that I made. So what does God say about our health? So we have this thing in our world, it's like, well, studies tell us that this or that or the other, right? But what does God say? Okay? What we need to do is we need to breathe and we need to trust that our God knows more about us than any study, than any scientist in any lab, because He made us. And when you want to know about a thing, you go to the creator of that thing. And where we need to be getting our information about what is healthy and what is good for us needs to be from our God who created us. We don't need a study to verify that God's way is the best way, right? We don't need somebody to go into a lab and study something to tell us that. We already know that God's way is the best way. The natural side, the way that God gave us, is the one to believe. And then the other side needs to prove that they're right to give you a reason to leave it. You should never leave what God showed you is the right way. Because, see, in our world, we deal with a lot of imitations. Throughout history, man has mistreated and tried to imitate what God made perfect. Think about Israel. Israel was led by God. Israel was delivered by God over and over and over and over again. And what did Israel do? They created idols. They worshiped idols. They turned their back on God instead of trusting the one that was right there in front of them that they knew was real. And yet they turned to imitations. The church. God gave us the church built on a perfect foundation of Jesus. And what does man do? Imitates it. Makes denominations, make all manner of things that they want to say is better. But is it? And how far has that gotten us? If those people stay fooled, they will pay the price. Just like if we are fooled in our health, we're going to pay the price. Again, it's not a salvation issue. It's not that kind of price, but it is a price. So is more better? Where did my mouse go? There it is. Okay, is more better. So if you're like me, you probably turned to homeschooling because you wanted a slower pace. You want to be able to kind of control your life. You don't want to be hubbub and buzzing and doing, here and there and the way that the world does things so fast and so much. But have we really done that? It seems like we've kind of nickeled and dimed ourselves into having a schedule that's full of everybody else's priorities and not our own, so that we're so busy, we don't have time to cook. We don't have time to maybe make the best health choices. We have sacrificed our God-given health on the altar of all the stuff on our calendar. We have done more research on our cell phones and on our car purchases than we have on our health decisions, instead of trusting that God's perfect design is the best way. We have trusted an industry that exists based on making money off of us and selling us lies. And we've bought them, and not only have we bought them, we argue for them, and we make people feel bad if they don't do what the industry tells us, even if it goes against what God has taught us. All of these things have happened right under our noses because we've been too busy to notice. And I want you to think about what happens to a house when it's abandoned. Anybody? Some of you probably drove on some back roads to get here. Probably drove past a house that was completely abandoned. And what happens? The grass grows up. You might have a tree coming up through the middle, bugs all in it. Might even have squatters in some places take over, right? Our bodies are the temple of the Holy Spirit, okay? And if we don't do the proper maintenance that we need to do, the enemy will get a foothold, just like any manner of nature or whatever is going to get a foothold in that abandoned house. If we have neglected our maintenance, we can't be surprised when any manner of sicknesses or just feeling bad takes over. Yes, I understand our bodies are mortal. None of us are going to live forever, right? I get that. But that doesn't mean that we have to be miserable while we're here. That doesn't mean we have to be sick while we're here. Okay? So I firmly believe that if we work with God's design for our bodies, that we can have a healthy life of service for Him, because guess what? Why does it matter? Because what kind of moms can we be? What kind of wives can we be? What kind of workers for God can we be if all of our time is spent in the doctor's office? If all of our money is spent on treatments and medications, instead of having the time and having the money to serve God and make good, healthy choices? There's a phrase that says, pay your farmer or pay your doctor. So sometimes you'll find that it might be more expensive to do things the good way, but if you don't do things that way, you're going to pay for it in the back end anyway. So we want to think about how our choices are impacting our ability to serve God. And I want you to know that many of the things that we feel like just happened to us, sometimes we just, I just got this or I just got that. Sometimes we need to admit that we are suffering from these things through our own choices. But the truth, learning the truth, can change that and can set you free. So today I want to share with you 3 secrets to sharpen your health. Okay? They're kind of, they go a wide span, but they're all related. So the first secret is to trust God with your nutrition. For those that came in right as we were starting, I do have all these slides for you, so don't feel like you have to write everything down. Trust God with your nutrition. So we're going to start with the foundation. I'm not going to go real deep into this because I know you all know this. So I'm going to talk more so about the sourcing of your food, not so much the food itself. Just real quick though, for foundation, proteins. Proteins are the building blocks of us. We are a organism made of cells, right? Lots of cells. Proteins are what our body uses to make those cells. We need to be making sure, though, that our proteins are coming from good, whole sources, not from junk, because what you put in is what you get out, right? So one of the things that I really like to emphasize is for your protein sources, if you have farmers around you, if you have people that you know, try to get your food from a place that you know where it was grown. Because I don't know if you've ever watched any of these documentaries about where cattle and things like that are grown commercially. You don't want to eat that if you can help it. Protein should be in every meal. I don't know if you have diabetics in here, but you've heard the phrase, eat like a diabetic. When you mix a protein with all of your carbs, it keeps you from having the blood sugar spikes and you don't feel as bad, so because it keeps your blood sugar more stable. The proteins break down slower than the carbs do. So it's a balance when you put them together, and they should, like I said, always come from whole food sources. Next, fats. Guess what? Fat is not the enemy. Okay? That's not the enemy. The type of fat is the enemy, and we're going to go over some other enemies as well. Fats are actually essential. And in our low-fat culture where, you see low-fat this and low-fat that, and yet we have all of these memory issues, you need to understand that fats and fatty acids are essential for your brain and the good kinds of fats for the connections between your cells. Okay? So again, fat is not the enemy. Inflammatory fat is the enemy. Things like vegetable oils, and you'll see that on another slide as well. Things like that are the enemy because those are the things that cause inflammation in our bodies, which cause our bodies not to work properly. Carbs, not the enemy. I know a lot of you probably have either been on or heard of low-carb diets. Carbs are not the enemy. Simple carbs are the enemy. Processed carbs are the enemy. But whole carbs, the way that God gave them to us, are actually essential for the energy for those cells that I mentioned a while ago. But not all carbs are created equally. See, there's something called nutrient density. And that is basically, you've got a can of Coke, like 240 calories or whatever. And you've got a plate full of greens loaded with vegetables, it's 240 calories. You have 240 calories both places. They are not the same, right? They're not going to give you the same nutrition. So what you have to do is focus on getting more nutrition in the things that you're choosing, not eating empty. We don't just eat just to eat. We're eating for the purpose of eating is to get nutrition, not just to fill your tummy up. It's to give your body the fuel that you need to function. So how do we get the most nutritionally dense food in our world? Let me give you an example. Most of you that know me, know I make bread. I grind my own wheat from wheat berries that look like this, okay? What I want you to think about, and this was a hard one for a lot of people to grasp, okay? Because it sounds like you do what? Well, you got mules in your backyard grinding up your wheat? No, it's not like that. I want you to think about how bread has been demonized in our culture. I would dare say that there's probably at least one or two of you in here who don't eat bread because you've been told that it's bad for you. What did Jesus say? He said, I'm the bread of life. I'm the what? The bread of life. Would Jesus compare himself to something that would make us sick? Would he have made that parallel? Would he have drawn that picture for us? The truth is, in the Lord's Prayer, it says to give us this day our what? Daily bread. Because see, in those days, they were taking wheat like this, and they were making flour. And see, when you take wheat like this, and you make flour, it is chock full of nutrition, and everything is in the proper balance to where your gut can handle it, and it doesn't make you sick. Commercially available bread, though, is highly processed, and it is the enemy. When people tell you that bread is bad for you, they're right if they're talking about store-bought bread. It will make you sick. It will destroy your health, as will anything else that has processed wheat in it in the boxes or the bags in the middle of the store. Okay? What happens let's talk about what happened, first of all. What happens? So flour, so when you grind this, you get this, okay? I don't know, and we can pass this around if you care, but there's like little bits of brown in here. It's not perfectly white. It's not all fluffy and light, right? It has the bran and the germ and the oils and everything that naturally should be in the wheat, okay? But what happens if you just leave this on your shelf like this, it goes rancid because it's got oil in it, and oil doesn't last, right? So what they found is if we take that bran out and we take that germ out and we just leave the white part, it doesn't go rancid. Yeah, lasts forever. But you know what else happens? And by the way, and I'm going to do a giveaway in a minute. You need to know that. Come in here. I'm doing more giveaways than aren't here. But there is a link at the end to a talk called The Truth About Wheat. Because what I'm talking about right now could be a whole college course. I can't give you everything, but you can go learn more about it. So here's a picture to show you the wheat berry and kind of how it's all made up. And what happens is all of this outer part is gone, and it's just the inner part that's left, and that's the simple carbs. The outside's where the fiber is and the nutrition is. The inside is the energy that would have kept that wheat berry alive if it grew into a wheat plant to make more wheat. When you take that away, you lose your nutrition, you lose your fiber, okay? How many of y'all are constipated today? Don't answer that, okay? This kind of food is how you stay regular, okay? And by the way, I'm not just talking about bread. This is muffins, pancakes, waffles, cakes, cookies, pie crust. I mean, anything that you make with flour, you can do it this way. When you mill wheat, when you go from this to this, within a day, half of the nutrition is gone, just out in the air. It oxidizes. Just like an apple turns brown, bananas turn brown, that's oxidation. Same thing happens to wheat. Within 3 days, almost all of the nutrition is gone. I'm going to pop these ones. Almost all of the nutrition is gone, okay? Tell me which one of those bags of wheat sitting at the store right now hadn't been there 3 days. There's not. There is no such thing because it took that long to get there, right? And on top of that, 90% of conventional wheat is doused with glyphosate, Roundup, just before harvest, which means it's all still there in the product that you eat. It's been, like I said, it's been sitting on the shelf for how long? So what do? How do you manage this? Well, you buy organic and you mill it yourself if at all possible. And I know that sounds like, whoa, who's got time for that? But I want you to know I started when I was pregnant with my third. I had a 3-year-old, a 1.5-year-old, and I was literally already significantly showing, and that's when I started. Is there a busier time than when you have 2 toddlers, or a preschooler and a toddler, and you're pregnant? And yet I did it. It is doable. I do it. Kate does. Kate Slotman. I don't see her in here, and April also. So if you want to learn more about it, you got lots of people at your service. I can't dwell on it too long, though. I want to bring one thing out here. So this is nutritional values for store-bought white bread, okay? I want to just bring a couple of things to your attention. Vitamin E says what? 0 fiber. Okay, this is the loaf that I make. Fiber 4 grams, 100% of your daily value of vitamin E in one slice, y'all. One slice. And you know what vitamin E is good for? It's a major antioxidant. It's really good for skin issues. It's good for things like prevention for things like Alzheimer's. Remember we talked about the oil. See, vitamin E is an oil, a fat-soluble vitamin. Got to have the fat for that to work. And again, it's not just the bread. You can do this in lots of different ways. But what about gluten? Right? Gluten's big bad wolf, right? That's what we heard. Gluten is actually just the protein that makes the bread rise, okay? So when you knead bread dough, over time, it gets smoother and smoother, and the fibers get stretchier and stretchier, and then the yeast or the sourdough that you put in there that gives off the gases, those gases push on those gluten fibers, and that's what makes the bread rise. That's what makes it light and fluffy, okay? Gluten is not a bad thing, but when you take away the bran and the germ, and all you have left is the endosperm. And then in our culture, you add other things in to make it even lighter and even fluffier because we like our squishy bread, right? That's what sells. That throws off the protein ratio so much that then your gut doesn't know what to do with it. And you mix with that glyphosate that I mentioned, and there's something in your gut called villi. Keep things moving. They lay down. They quit working. Your gut becomes what's called leaky. And those proteins can now get out of your gut into places that it doesn't belong, and your body reacts to it, and that starts the inflammation that then makes you feel terrible. Okay? It's not the gluten that did that. It's what was done to the wheat before you ever ate it. Okay? There's a difference between gluten intolerance, which most people are, and celiac. Celiac is a true allergy. I have theories about where that came from, but it is a true allergy. Okay? And if you have that, you may not be able to eat whole bread. But if you just have a gluten intolerance, there's a lot of people who have gluten intolerances that can eat bread like how I make it. And it's giveaway time. Okay. I have 2 sets of the Truth About Wheat and Do Not Eat the Bread of Idleness. Disclaimer, these are not, this is done by a lady named Sue Becker. She is not a member of the church, and she does talk about some scriptural things. Nothing was too terrible, but you can leave that part out. Listen to it for the wheat thing, the wheat part. 2 people who are in here and your curiosity is piqued and you're like, I want to learn more. Raise your hand. Okay, I saw you first and I saw you first. Go. All right. 2 people who, I'm channeling my inner Simi Kali here, right? I'm like, how do we do the giveaways? Someone who has never, I need 2 people who have never, ever had whole wheat bread from fresh milled. Got you. Okay. And I want you to know, so I clearly I came here yesterday, so I had to make this Wednesday night. So I didn't cut it because that makes it go bad faster or get dry faster. But I have a bread knife, so if you want it sliced, I'll cut it for you. There you go. And there you go. 2 more people who think you're gluten intolerant, but you're willing to try something delicious. Ooh, that one. God, no. Okay. Because you beautiful ladies get the cinnamon rolls. Because I wanted it to at least taste good going, really good going down, just in case. You're good. Oh, you're going to love it. Okay, and I do all that because Sue Becker, who is the owner of Bread Beckers in Atlanta, one of the things she does, she teaches classes like this, and people will come and try it at conventions and stuff and then go back, and then come back an hour later and buy a meal and buy a mixer because they're like, oh, I just ate bread and I'm not sick. Okay? All right, moving on. Milk. Store-bought milk is empty, and the fats have been completely denatured and destroyed by the pasteurization process, which we were told is for our good. Okay? Pasteurization destroys the good in milk. It destroys the bad, but it also destroys the good on the back of the germ theory, which may or may not be correct. I don't have time to get into that. But raw milk, when it comes from natural sources, is full of nutrition. Okay? I heard Dr. Axe say once, I don't know if you know who he is, he comes on the radio and stuff, but he said that drinking 1 cup of whole milk from the store is the equivalent of drinking 1 cup of vegetable oil, as far as what your body knows what to do with it, okay? So why are we scared of raw milk? Well, see, back when New York City was first developing, they had lots and lots and lots and lots of people coming in, and they couldn't keep up with nourishing these people, and it was costing too much to bring in food from out in the countryside. So they made a little makeshift pasture in the city. right next to a distillery where they were making things that you make at distilleries. And you use wheat and use different things in that process. And they were taking the leftovers and feeding it to the cattle, who were then producing a disgusting milk that was bluish and gross. They were adding flour and chalk and molasses to cover up the flavor. And they were calling this pure country milk. And they were selling it to the population, and thousands of children died. And some adults too. And they blamed it not on the sick cows and the sick milk, but on it being raw milk. Because there was an industry there, right? So there's money to be made. When you drink raw milk, you get 100% active everything. When you drink pasteurized milk, everything is either denatured, destroyed, or reduced. Everything. Okay? Lactose intolerance. I have my theories about where that came from. We're going to talk about them more in a minute. But I'm not sure of the cause. But here's the neat thing about raw milk. If you think you're lactose intolerant, raw milk has in it something called lactase. Lactase is the enzyme your body needs to process lactose. And when you pasteurize, guess what happens? It goes away. But when it's not pasteurized, it's still there, and it can help your body digest. Another example, produce. Okay, you kind of get where we're going here, right? All the things that are not quite what we've been told. Produce, store-bought produce is picked long before it's ripe, because it's got to be picked long before it's ripe, or it won't be any good by the time it gets to you, and it probably came from the other side of the country and all that kind of stuff. Not to mention it's probably been doused with chemicals and things like that. Again, back to the gut health. Sorry. So what do? Well, if you, at all possible, you grow your own. Or you get to know the farmers at the farmer's market. Because when you pick produce at its ripeness, at the peak of its ripeness, not only does it taste better, but it is full of nutrition. The stuff at the grocery store that was picked in California 2 weeks ago is not full of nutrition, because it can't be. By the way, if you think you can't grow anything because you live in a place that you don't have anything to grow, or you don't have a yard or whatever else, you can grow sprouts on your countertop in less than a week. And in one little bite, you can have more nutrition than you probably would get from a whole head of lettuce at the store. Salt. Salt is not the enemy. Table salt is the enemy. It has been stripped of all the good stuff. Are you getting the thing here? They're stripping all the good stuff, and we're giving you the junk and telling you it's good, or it's bad for you, good for you, whatever. So the minerals that are essential to life have been stripped from salt during the process to make it into the pretty white table salt that doesn't stick together or clump. Because natural salt does clump some. And I'm going fast through this, by the way, because we got to get moving. We're almost halfway through our time. Real Salt is a great brand. There's a link to that at the end that you will have if you want to try a brand of salt that will not mess you up. Because see, here's the thing about salt. Salt is a balancer of your body's fluids. Okay, that's why salt can impact your blood pressure, because table salt doesn't have all those minerals there that also help with the fluid balance. You don't just need sodium. You need sodium, potassium, and all these different trace minerals. When you process the salt, that stuff all goes away. All you have left is the sodium. That sodium pulls the water into the wrong place, out of your cells, into your circulation, and it shoots your blood pressure up. When the salt is not processed, it doesn't do that. Okay? Another example of us being lied to, we're the salt of the earth. Would they have told us we were something that was damaging? Would God have said, you are something terrible? But yet, salt is the enemy, right? Unrefined salt has 80 life-giving essential minerals that the refined substance doesn't have. 80. And when those 80 things are there, your body can properly balance your fluids and help manage your blood pressure. Eggs, you probably already know all this, because I know that's kind of like the thing everybody jumps in on first, and that's fine. But store-bought eggs versus farm fresh eggs that have been raised where the chickens are eating grass and bugs and all the things God designed chickens to eat, you have eggs that are full of nutrition versus the eggs that are not full of nutrition, that are deplete of nutrition. Actual enemies. Big food, which is anything processed. By the way, big pharma and big food, owned by the same people. Conflict of interest much? Sugar is everywhere. That means high fructose corn syrup. That means regular corn syrup, sugar, not processed sugar, fake sugar, aspartame. All these things are all inflammatory. And sugar is actually the root of a lot of the heart issues that we have. We think it's cholesterol. Really, it's the damage the sugar has done that then creates the plaques that then all the things get caught on. It's not the things getting caught that's their fault. It's the sugar that's the fault. Toxins from medications, from radiation, from having these things right here on us all the time. The watches, the shots, the food, this skin products, the detergents on our clothes, all of this constant influx of toxins that our bodies are having to deal with constantly, mixed with food that might not be able to help give our bodies the support they need to process these things out. Inflammatory fats, like I mentioned, and anything that's an imitation. Anything that wants to act like it's real, but it's been processed, it's not going to be what it claims to be. It's going to be your enemy.
Hope you enjoyed that and learned a lot. Part 2 will be here for you next week. See you then. Real quick, if today's episode blessed you in any way, would you head over to Apple Podcasts and leave me a quick 5-star written review? It'll take you less than a minute, but it's the best thank you you can give me. And it will help my show to reach more mamas just like you, so we can all find God's best for our families. I'll see you right back here in a few days.